and it was the first time I got to try jerk chicken. It was fire. It was so good. What the hell? Like that's some of the worst tackling I think I've seen in a game. Buffalo, we're coming. We're coming. And I don't care how cold it is. We played in negative 27-degree weather, and we whooped that ass. What's going on, everyone? You are listening to the Antonio Chaudan Sports Podcast. I am your host, Antonio Chaudan, and man, oh man, did Wild Card Weekend deliver. Texans, Chiefs, Packers, Lions, Bills, and Bucks all moving on to the divisional round. A few of those teams, dare I say, did not expect to win at all. I whiffed on a lot of my predictions. I predicted that the Cowboys would win handily. I said that Philly would win. Now I was on the fence about that, and I wouldn't have been surprised if the Bucks won. But I was expecting maybe if the Bucks won a close game, not a freaking blowout. I predicted the Lions would lose. That was my mistake. Now look, I like the Lions. I'm glad that they won. And it was a close game. It was the closest game out of all of the matchups that we saw throughout the entire wild card weekend. And I definitely did not see that Texans blowout against the Browns. That was insane. But you know what? I should have seen that coming, given the fact that the Joe Flacco experience you get is you get a lot of yards, 2-3 touchdowns, but you also get a couple picks in there too. And 2 back-to-back pick sixes was really what broke the camel's back in that game. Even without those 2 pick sixes, they win 31-14. So, you know, that's still a pretty dominant win in and of itself, even without the pick sixes if they weren't to take place. So, yeah, it was a lot. It was, again, a wild card weekend. I mean, none of the games I was able to see in totality, except for the Chiefs game. For those of you who remember, who watched the last show, Fran and I went to New York. Specifically, we stayed in Brooklyn. It was a fun trip, by the way. Super, super fun trip. I enjoyed it a lot. But the thing was, since we were out and about doing a bunch of stuff, I didn't really get a chance to watch any of the games. Funny enough, though, I have to prioritize the Chiefs game, of course, and so we went to a pub. I met up with my Theo, actually. Shout out to Making Movies band out of Kansas City. My Theo Juan Carlos is one of the founding members of that group. He plays the percussion, he plays the keys, he plays the timbales, bongos, congas. And so, yeah, he was in New York for the weekend. Fran and I went to go see them play at Joe's Pub. I really liked it. It was a cool little spot. And yeah, so we watched the game Saturday night. Ran into this really douchey, obnoxious Dolphins fan. I forget the name of the pub that we went to go watch the game, but we went up to the rooftop initially because we wanted to see, you know, if we could see the game. Like they had a bunch of TVs around where their 4th floor rooftop, and that's where the lady told us to go. So we went up, but it's like this tiny ass elevator that 3 people can barely fit in comfortably, and we're waiting for the elevator. And this guy's like, Chiefs fan, because, you know, I had my Chiefs gear on, right? And you could smell the beer from his breath, so I already knew that he was feeling a little good. And yeah, and he was just kind of being a douche. But, you know, then he was like, all right, so should I take my parlay? Like, dude, I don't care. I hope you guys freaking lose. I don't like you. But, you know, we were getting into a tight elevator. I didn't want to piss him off, and Fran was right next to me. I didn't want to put her in a predicament. So yeah, anyways, but yeah, I hope he had a bad night, that Dolphins fan. I do. But yeah, the other thing too that was funny, specifically with the Cowboys game, was I took Fran to dinner Sunday night called Viva Toro. It was a really cool spot, like maybe 3 blocks, if that, from where we were staying at our Airbnb. And I took her to a nightclub unknowingly. Keep in mind, we had reservations for 6:30, and it's Sunday night. Keep in mind, we go in, and it's just Spanish music playing, and I'm like, it's 6:15 on a Sunday evening, and people were getting lit, and the music was loud. Now, grant MLK Day was the next day, so I guess people had off on Monday, so it was like a Saturday night in a way to them. But holy shit, man, it was loud. I could barely hear Fran. Uh, we got a few drinks though, and we ate. The food was fire. It was very good. But they were showing the Cowboys game while I was there, so I was seeing bits and pieces of it. And I saw when I got there, it was 7-0, and I was like, all right, that's cool. And then, well, actually, no. I can't remember if we had already gotten there. Packers were winning. That's all that matters. And then I saw them go up big, and they just never looked back. And the final score, 48-32, is very misleading. 48-16, in my opinion, was the final score of that game. And then the rest at that point was just empty calories. And you hear a lot of people, analysts, say empty calories, and it's true. I mean, no matter how you slice it or dice it, those points were meaningless. It made the scoreline look a little bit more flattering once the clock hit 0, but at that point, it was no use. I mean, the game was over. So if you're more concerned about filling up a stat sheet when it doesn't matter in comparison to getting a win, then, to each their own. But yeah, so anyways, it was a fun trip. I thought it was funny that I didn't realize I was taking Fran to a nightclub. This one woman, she busted her ass because she was all drunk, and I didn't see it actually. I kind of heard it, and Fran, who was sitting across from me, she was like, "Oh," so she saw the whole thing. It was funny. But yeah, anyways, great time. Highly recommend going. I also got to try some soul food. Should I say for the first time? I don't know. I mean, it was called Taste of Heaven, and it was again maybe 2-3 blocks away from where we were staying, and it was the first time I got to try jerk chicken. It was fire. It was so good. Again, they had a line kind of waiting outside of the store, and it was really good. It was worth the wait. But I really wanted to try their oxtail. I've never had oxtail in my life, and I hear it's amazing. So I definitely want to try it. But yeah, this place apparently is really well known. As soon as you get it, it's not a big restaurant. I mean, it's not big enough for seating. And so, but I go in though, and I'm waiting on the line, and I see this like poster of like all these different celebrities that have been to the restaurant, and these are celebrities ranging from Michael Jackson, to Serena Williams, other athletes and celebrities like of that type of caliber. I was like, oh my god, like this is very, very credible. I can't remember off the top of my head. There was like 16 of them, and I didn't take a long enough glance to really remember all the names. But no, it was crazy. Kevin Hart, I know he was another one. So yeah, big name celebrities and athletes like that. So and I can see why, because it was really good. Definitely, I wanted that oxtail, but they had sold out by the time we got there. We went twice too. First day we went, they closed at like 7 p.m. I think, and we got there around like 6. And yeah, so I mean, it makes sense if it's a highly requested food item, they're definitely going to sell out by the time it's 6 p.m., an hour before closing. But then we went the next day, tried to go a little bit earlier, around 3:34 ish. And same thing, they're out of oxtail, but I tried their jerk chicken and it was really good, very, very good. So if you guys know any places around here, in the DMV, let me know, because I want to try some oxtail. We also went to Chinatown too. That was a lot of fun. I forget the place where we went to, but Fran wanted to go to it, and it was so good. We got like these pork buns. We actually went to two places because there was one there was like kind of a longer line. So while we were waiting in there, we went to the one right next door. We got like some these peanut dumplings, um, and they were super good, super good. I love Asian food. I love Chinese food, so I was down for it. Um, so we had dumplings, we had these pork buns, we got these spring rolls. Um, yeah, it was 10 out of 10 for sure. Some of them, there were some items I like more than others, so 10 out of 10 maybe is a little generous, but definitely 8.59 range for sure. It was very good. The pork buns were the best things I put in my mouth um, from that restaurant. It was so good. Um, Anyways, I know I kind of gave you all a little bit of a rundown of my weekend trip with Fran. But let's get back to the matter at hand here. And yeah, first let's talk about the two breakout games, playoff debuts for these two quarterbacks in CJ Stroud and Jordan Love. I mean, the debate has been over the past few days who had the better game, CJ Stroud or Jordan Love. Um, and look, they're both in their playoff debuts, but very different circumstances. You have a team in the Houston Texans that were 3-13-1 the season prior under Lovie Smith, and you start over. You get DeMeco Ryans from the 49ers, and you draft CJ Stroud as your quarterback, your franchise quarterback. And not only do you improve your season, but you finish with the 10-7 record, win your division, and you rock the Browns in your first playoff game in a couple years against a defense in the Cleveland Browns that statistically are top 5, maybe top 3 in all statistical categories. A guy in Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward on the other side of the ball that you're going to be battling, and you're just like, we got this. Again, I understand the pick sixes, 2 of them. I mean, that's 14 points right there. But still, even without that, you put 31 points on this Browns team. Aside from the pick sixes, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, CJ played a nearly perfect game, like 270 something yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, and he was like what, 16 of 21 in completions? Like, are you kidding me? I mean, wow. And it sucks for the Browns because they were turning around their season a little bit. Obviously, with Deshaun Watson going out mid to late season, and you have a guy in Joe Flacco coming off his couch in the middle of the season to play with you guys and lead you guys on a little bit of a run here. Gave your hopes up a little bit, obviously, given how things ended up. But man, hell of a game by CJ. And then on the flip side, you have Jordan Love. And his circumstances obviously are different, given the fact that for the first, 3 seasons of his career, he was backup to Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people were confused with the reason as to why they picked Jordan Love while Aaron was still there instead of getting a wide receiver, an offensive weapon for him, because, pardon me, with all of the drama that took place while Aaron was finishing up his career with the Packers, a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was a lack of help from the front office to get him some offensive help, some offensive weapons. And so you get a guy in Jordan Love and you're like, what the hell, man? Like, I'm still here. Like, you're already trying to get me out of here, draft my replacement. And so with all of that going on, Jordan Love, I mean, basically identical numbers to CJ Stroud. Incredible. Incredible. I mean, credit to Matt LaFleur for, um, being able to develop him, right? And to get his scheme together through Jordan Love because, with Aaron Rodgers, it was kind of a mesh of his own thing with Matt LaFleur's thing. It wasn't fully Matt LaFleur's offense that he wanted to run because Aaron Rodgers was still there. But the fact that Jordan Love is his guy, he was able to develop him. He's been with him from the start. This is Matt LaFleur's team. This is the offense that he wants to run. And, I mean, Aaron Jones ran crazy, against the Cowboys. And, that's more about the Cowboys defense, in my opinion. You have a guy in Aaron Jones who had 2 rushing touchdowns the entire regular season, and he had 3 just in that one game against the Cowboys. Again, more credit to the offense, but obviously more of a discredit as well to not just the run defense, but the defense as a whole from the Cowboys. But anyways, getting back to Jordan Love specifically, there were some throws that he made that were Brett Favre-esque, Aaron Rodgers-esque. I mean, it's crazy. The franchise that the Packers have been able to run for over the past 50, 60, 70 years, right? Just from the quarterbacks alone, having a guy and Brett Favre transitioning to Aaron Rodgers, now to Jordan Love, a span of 30 years, roughly? I mean, that's crazy to have this type of quarterback play with that span of time. It's just insane. And I have no doubt that Jordan Love is going to continue on this trajectory going forward. I mean, that was an incredible game against a team that I thought, was different this year than prior years. But, shame on me for falling for that trap. It's kind of identical to the past 2 seasons, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, 1-3 in the playoffs over that 3-season span. I should have known. Again, I don't even like the Cowboys. I hate Cowboys fans. I think anyone who's not a Cowboys fan hates Cowboys fans. But I'm a fan of Dak. I'm a fan of Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a great player. Micah Parsons, he's a great player, but he talks a little bit too much. That's just me. Don't even get me started on Jerry Jones. I mean, oh my God, if there's anyone to blame for why they haven't had the success that they've had over these past 3 decades, you can definitely pinpoint it at him. Running Jimmy Johnson out of the building because he wanted it to be his team when Jimmy Johnson was the only reason why they were having the success that they were. So, anyways, I digress. But yeah, 2 amazing performances by those 2 quarterbacks, those 2 young quarterbacks. The NFL is in good hands. They really are. Houston is in good hands. Green Bay is in good hands. I think that Texans-Browns game was incredible. And since we're talking about Jordan Love, let's pivot over to the Cowboys and Packers game. I don't know. Where do I begin? Before this game, Dallas was perfect at home the entire season, 8-0. That was kind of their playing card. Was that, all right, you have us at home, we will win. They allowed a total of 415 yards of offense from the Green Bay Packers, 272 from Jordan Love through the air, and 143 rushing yards on the ground. 118 of those from Aaron Jones. I mean, what the hell, man? Micah Parsons was a total no-show. He had that Bobby Boucher jersey going into the game, thinking he's about to wreak havoc. And Bobby Boucher would be so disappointed in you, Micah, without a doubt. I mean, it's the status quo of the Cowboys. It really is. They haven't won a Super Bowl in over 30 years, or almost 30 years. And it's typical, not just of of the Cowboys, but unfortunately Dak Prescott, where you're a regular season guy. Let's call it like it is. Again, over these past 3 seasons, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, and you only have one playoff win to show in those 3 seasons. And I'm looking specifically in the window under Mike McCarthy, who is probably going to get canned after that abysmal performance. Like I said, the 32 points that the Cowboys put up are strictly, the game was over. I think Dak finished with like 403 yards, but they were meaningless. Over half of those yards were meaningless. Again, at one point it was 48-16 with 6 and some change left in the game. There was, and at that point, the reason why Dallas got the ball back those 2 more times is because at that point you're up by 32 points. You're going to play conservative. You're just going to run the ball. So if they really wanted to keep the ball, Green Bay, they could have. They really could have. So this puts up in the air a lot of different scenarios. Is Mike McCarthy going to stay? Probably not. Are they going to want to move off Dak Prescott? He's due for a contract extension. And after that performance, you're like, what contract extension? Again, I like Dak, but it's hard to defend that type of play. When the game mattered most, you didn't show up. And you can only show up once the game is out of reach, and then you can really pad up that stat line. So, no, that's not going to get it done. And if that's the first time I've hit it today. It's not bad. That's not going to get it done at all. If Jerry Jones is serious about winning a Super Bowl, let's be honest, he's not getting any younger. He's like 81 years old, I think. Respectfully, it's kind of on borrowed time. He looks old. So I hope he is with us for a long time, but you got to be realistic at some point and be like, all right, my time's ticking. I'm losing time to win a Super Bowl. So, we'll see what they decide to do. Bill Belichick is out there, right? We also got Jim Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel, guys like that. So we'll see what happens. I did see that Bill Belichick had an interview with the Atlanta Falcons. It's a little awkward, don't you think? But anyways, I don't want to focus too much on the Cowboys. I want to give more credit to the Packers. They had an amazing game, and it's going to be a great matchup against the 49ers. I really think so. I don't think it'll be a cakewalk. I think the 49ers will win that game, but and I'm not going to give my predictions till I'm going to do another video I'm going to dedicate just to predictions, and that'll be coming out this Friday. So this is going to be coming out Wednesday, typical time at noon Eastern, and I'm going to have a video for you all for Friday. So look out for that Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. That's when I'll be giving my predictions for the divisional round. So that'll be fun. But spoiler, I think the 49ers will win that game. But hey, I'd love to be pleasantly surprised. But yeah, moving on now. So I know I haven't even talked a peep about my Chiefs. So we'll save them for last. But just really quickly, the most recent game that is in my mind that I watched last night, Bills and Steelers. Josh Allen had a good game, right? And I think the Bills are the most lethal when Josh Allen is going, but also they got the run game going. Cook is a godsend for them. He really is. He has really been productive for them this season, and he's been that missing piece in the run game that Buffalo hasn't had for so long, really throughout the entire career of Josh Allen's tenure with the Bills. really the only way they've been able to win is if Josh Allen has an ungodly game, right? And look, zero turnovers. That's what you want to see out of Josh Allen. But he's always due every more often than not, unfortunately for him, to turn the ball over, and that's kind of been his status quo. He's very turnover prone. He was able to protect the ball against the Steelers yesterday, but at the same time, this was an inferior team in the Pittsburgh Steelers that I predicted to lose. That was literally the only other game that I guessed correctly. I said that the Bills would win, and obviously I said the Chiefs would win. I think those were the only two games I guessed correctly. Um, and the other game too were the Eagles and Bucks, and we'll talk about them next. But yeah, man, I mean, I really don't have much to take away from this. I feel very similar to this game, like I do. Surprisingly, with the Chiefs game, I expected us to win that game. I expected us to hold Miami to lower score, but I mean, I said we'd win that game 24-14. We end up winning that game 26-7. So, very dominant win on our part. But again, a team that I expected to win against because we are the superior team, just like I thought the Bills were the superior team to Pittsburgh. So I see those very similarly in terms of I'm not surprised with the outcome. But Buffalo, we're coming. We're coming. And I don't care how cold it is. We played in negative 27-degree weather, and we whooped that ass. So I have no doubt that we're going to be able to take our show on the road to Buffalo. First playoff game that Patrick Mahomes will be playing on the road in his career. I'm very excited to see that. But yeah, I feel like I don't see the Bills any differently than I did before they played that game. The Pittsburgh, they had it within one possession later in the game. It was 24-17 at one point, and then James Cook just goes and runs it down their throat, takes some more time off the clock. 31-17. That's game. So yeah, I don't really have much more to take away from that game. Bad. Let me just say, Shakir, we need to watch out for him because he has been coming out over these past 4 to 6 games. He's a nice little weapon for them, man. I mean, obviously you got Stephon Diggs, you got Gabe Davis. That third piece in Shakir, that's a weapon for sure. I mean, that touchdown he made shed a few tackles. Now that was some bad tackling on the part of I think that was Fitzpatrick. He basically tried to just like spin him down to the ground, and Shakir just kept his foot in. He kept the certain parts off the ground so he wouldn't be down. I think basically if your leg is down, your butt is down, your arm is down, like any part of your limbs are down, um, that means that's where the play stops. He was able to kind of matrix it a little bit. He's like, oh no, not completely, and able to go run for 6. So yeah, I mean, Chiefs definitely need to keep an eye on him too because I feel like we'll be able to keep Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs in check, but it's that third guy in Shakir that we need to look out for. So yeah. Anyways, I'm kind of looking ahead a little bit. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on the Bills game. Eagles. I mean, like I said, I was expecting the Eagles to win, but I did preface it by saying that this was the one pick that I had the least confidence in. And you see why. I mean, bye, Eagles, bye. I mean, that was horrible. That was absolutely the difference to me because I feel like the biggest collapses that we've seen that everyone's really talking about with the Eagles and Cowboys is, I mean, those are the talks of the town. Like, oh my God, what happened with the Eagles? What happened with the Cowboys? With Miami, people weren't as surprised with that just because, I mean, they were 1-5 or 1-6 against teams with winning records over the regular season. They can't play with the big dogs, and that was kind of the status quo. You got a warm weather team coming up to the frozen tundra in Kansas City, playing in negative 27-degree wind weather, and yeah, that was more expected. Um, the thing though with me, with the Cowboys and Eagles, is the Cowboys, in my opinion, they wanted to play, and they got out muscled, they got outplayed, outran. I mean, they got punked. That's what I take away from that game. With the Eagles, I felt like they didn't even want to be out there. I mean, I could maybe pull 3 or 4 different plays that I saw where I saw genuine emotion from the team where I'm like, all right, yeah, they they want to be here. I saw that on the few different sacks from Fletcher Cox. Um, I saw that on the 57-yard reception by Devontae Smith. They were able to get a touchdown on that drive. Those are really the only few plays that I saw where I genuinely felt that emotion from Philly that they want to play in this game, that they want to win. That was it. That's the main difference for me. Dallas got outplayed and they got punked, and Philly just didn't give the impression that they wanted to be out there to begin with. That they had that fervor, that you know, fire and swagger about them that we saw from last season. That wasn't there. So it's two totally different tunes, both embarrassing losses. Um, but in my opinion, for different reasons. And look, they started off 10-1, and then they proceed to win only one more game throughout the rest of their season. They were 1-6 to finish out the regular season, including the playoffs. So basically, from that 10-1 start, and then getting their ass whooped by the 49ers, they go 1-6, including this playoff loss in the wild card. I mean, I said it before the playoffs even started. The team that has the least amount of momentum going into the playoffs are the Eagles. And it showed. It showed 100%. Losing to, now, not to discredit the Bucks here, but I mean, the AFC South, or I'm sorry, the NFC South is always a toss up with, who's the best of the worst, really. And the Bucks eke it out at 9-8. Keep in mind they barely won against Carolina, who had only won 2 games the entire season, 9-0, to lock up the division. Now, look, Baker Mayfield had a great game, but to further my point about the guys not even seeming like they want to be out there, I think there was like a total of 10 missed tackles on that Eagles defense. Are you kidding me? Like, there was a few, like, I forget the guy's name from the Bucks, Palmer, and he shed like he shed like 2 tackles, and I was like, what the hell? Like that's some of the worst tackling I think I've seen in a game. Like that was awful. They were taking bad angles. They were knocking each other out. Like I was like, what the hell is going on? They were all discombobulated back there, and I mean, it made me kind of pissed off because I'm like, damn, we only put 17 on these guys and we lost to them. Anyways, I always try to find a way to bring it back to the Chiefs. That came back to bite them in the ass because remember, Nick Sirianni after that game was like, "See, Chiefs fans, I don't want to hear it anymore." About he was talking shit, and then they proceed to finish the rest of the season the way that they did and lose in wild card round. Something I will say though, I felt really bad for Jason Kelce because I mean, obviously Travis Kelce being with the Chiefs, I love Travis, and I love watching their podcast, New Heights. So I got to, I mean, I feel like a lot of people got to learn more about who Jason is and his personality. He seems like a super dope human being. Um, and for him to go out like that, because he announced to the team that he was retiring. So the fact that he went out like that sucks. Um, if I like the Eagles just because I like the players that they have on their team. I don't like Nick Sirianni. I think he's a douche. Um, and Eagles fans are unbearable. Not as bad as Cowboys fans, but Eagles fans are really obnoxious. I mean, I heard it all, especially when we were playing them in the Super Bowl. Um, but yeah, it sucks. I feel really bad for Jason, and I'll be interested to see that New Heights episode that comes out tomorrow. How that's gonna go. To be honest, I'd be surprised if they even have an episode because he retired after a bad loss. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But just really quickly to give some love to the Bucks. I mean, Baker Mayfield, um, he's had a rough career. Um, Browns did him no favors in his 4 seasons there. I mean, he brought them one playoff win. That's the total amount of playoff wins that the Browns have in their organization, and he was able to bring that one to them. I remember that game against the Steelers. And then they come to KC that following week and they lose. That's the anything is possible game with Chad Henne after Patrick Mahomes got knocked out that game. I remember like it was yesterday. Um, but yeah, and so shipping him off to Carolina to try to get Deshaun Watson, and then them, releasing him. He got cleared off waivers. Goes to the Rams for like half a season or so. Kind of gets to showcase a little bit there. Then goes to Tampa, and lo and behold, found his place there in Tampa. Great, great win for the Bucks, for Baker. I really hope that Mike Evans, despite the success he's seeing right now with the Bucks, comes to his senses and realizes when he's a free agent this offseason that he needs to go to a contender. And that contender is the Kansas City Chiefs. Mike Evans. Dude, imagine the stuff that you can do with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. Like, come on. Come on, man. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, so credit to them, credit to the defense, Todd Bowles, coaching the boys up good there. And yeah, so those are my thoughts there. 2 more games, Rams and Lions. Again, I thought the Rams were going to win this game, but I'm glad that Detroit won. I really am, just to see. Again, when you're an NFL fan, I feel this personally. When it's a team that's not your team, that has just sucked for so long, you want them to do well. You do, because, I mean, you feel bad. I mean, we're all fans of the sport. We know what it's like to go through the trials and tribulations of a season. Season in, season out, for however long you've been a fan of your team, you know the lows. Regardless of if you have a winning team or not, there have been seasons where you're like, damn, where's the light at the end of the tunnel? I've been there. I've been there as a Chiefs fan, man. I mean, it hasn't been pretty. I remember when we had Todd Haley as our head coach, Matt Castle, that transition right before we went to Andy Reid. We had Romeo Cornell. That was horrible. There was a stretch where we had multiple weeks. Like, I think it spanned for more than a season. And I think I said this stat on my podcast too, where we didn't have a single touchdown pass to a wide receiver. Like that was like a thing. Like there was a drought where wide receivers were not catching and making touchdowns. Like, what? That's your job. Like, how does that happen? Anyways, needless to say, I've been through it as a Chiefs fan. Now, look, I'm only 23 years old. I have been spoiled with the Andy Reid era specifically with Patrick Mahomes. Because look, the Andy Reid era was nice. We were credible when we had Alex Smith, but we didn't have the success like we did with Mahomes. Alex Smith, I love the guy. He's a great human being too. He was a great mentor to Pat, and I think I credit a lot of that to Pat's success today. But losing to the Indianapolis Colts in that, I think it was it the wild card round or divisional? I think it was wild card round. Andrew Luck when he was still there. That was tough. I think we lost like 45, 44, 44, 43, something like that. We had like a 3 touchdown lead on him, though. We blew that, losing to Pittsburgh. Again, like there have been some dark times, some tough pills to swallow. And then even with Mahomes, I mean, losing in the AFC Championship game to Tom Brady and the Patriots, we should have won. D Ford lining up off sides. Yeah. Even more recently, just losing to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game in Arrowhead. I mean, that was tough too. That McPherson field goal to win it. But then they lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl. So that made up for it. So I say all this to say, when you're a fan and you know the lows of a team and you see other fans of other teams going through those lows for long, significant periods of time, you feel for them. Unless they're a Cowboys fan. Other than that, you feel for them. I'm happy to see, though, that Detroit got this win. They deserve it. It's interesting. Now, look, if you're a Lions fan and you're watching this, I want to hear your perspective on this. You boo Matt Stafford as he's coming out of the tunnel and throughout the game. Yet, this is a guy that's given everything to your organization and loves the city of Detroit, loves the people of Detroit, the players that play for the Lions organization. I understand at the same time, this is your first playoffs in some time, let alone getting this playoff win. So you have that emotion where you're like, yes, I get it. It's Matt Stafford. We love what he did for us. But right now, he's the enemy, and he is in our way of getting our first playoff win in over 30 years. I get it. But did you really have to boo him? That's my thing. That's kind of my question, I guess, to Lions fans. If you're watching this, let me know what you think about that. Again, it came down to the wire. This was the closest game of the entire wild card weekend. Jared Goff got it done when he needed it to. I mean, Dan Campbell put it in his hands to really ice the game, to get that first down, instead of just running it, being conservative, and then trying to run down the clock, maybe punt it. Rams possibly have a chance to go back and win it. Jared Goff, I mean, his story is incredible, and I think the fact that he's been able to have the success he's had with the Lions speaks volumes. So credit to him, credit to this defense. You know, they haven't been the best defense throughout the entire season, but winning a good game, 24-23. Matt Stafford, again, he had a great game. Puka Nacua, I mean, I love that kid. He's great. He broke another record. He had like 184 yards, something like that. I mean, he balled out. Correction, 181 yards on 9 receptions. So, yeah, I mean, the future is bright for the Rams. I am interested to see what they do at the quarterback position, though. I mean, Matt Stafford's getting up there in age, and you wonder how much longer he can do it at this level. I mean, he doesn't seem to be slowing down by any means, so I'm not trying to indicate that there's been any decline, but at the same time, that's something you got to think about too. Last but not least, I know you guys have been waiting for it. Chiefs beat Miami, and I'm not surprised. Again, I'm not surprised at all with this win. Um, I love how our defense played. I mean, we got some dogs, man. L'Jarius Sneed, who should be all pro, but Trent McDuffie is. Credit to him. He's had a hell of a season. But L'Jarius Sneed, man, I mean, the way he punked Tyreek Hill was a sight to see. And credit to Tyreek for taking down the chin. I saw he said something on Twitter about L'Jarius Sneed, basically, um, stuffing him all the way to Cancun or something like. He said something along the lines of that. I thought it was really funny. So he's a good sport there. But I guess when you have a Super Bowl under your belt already and all that money, then I guess you feel a little bit more comfortable with where you're at, and you're okay with losing a playoff game here and there. Um, Again, I did not think that Miami was going to be on our level in terms of physicality. I mean, this is an offense, right, that has been leading the league throughout the entire season, over 30 points a game, and we held him to 7. And to be honest with you, we could have held him to less, because if it weren't for that blunder, by McDuffie, it was a bad throw. He underthrew Tyreek, which is why he was stopped, and McDuffie was able to make up that real estate. But he tried to foul him. He's like, all right, if he's going to catch it, at least I can foul him. But he missed the tackle there. Tyreek shed it. Again, that was the only blunder on defense. Other than that, I mean, we played lights out, man. It was great. Chris Jones, George Karlaftis. I mean, those two guys. I mean, Chiefs, you better re-sign Chris Jones. I swear to God, if you let him walk and we do nothing with that money, I'm going to be very upset. Like, I do not want to see, like, if we go on and win a Super Bowl again, I don't want Brett Veach thinking like, oh, see, this does work. We can have, like, young receivers. We don't need veteran these big name wide receivers to win. It would be nice. And look, however we can manipulate, and look, I know the cap is a real thing. I understand that. But if we're going to be prioritizing the defense like we are here, all right then. If we're not going to have that type of money to get a Mike Evans, to get a T Higgins or a guy like that, pay this man his money. Again, I know he was asking for a lot, but we need Chris Jones on that D line. Chris Jones deserves to retire as a Chief, to be a lifer as a Chief. Okay? The way he's been able to play this season, the way he's been able to produce and affect games, we need that. And he's a perfect, and George Karlaftis is a perfect compliment to him, because if Chris Jones is getting all of that attention from the O-line, Karlaftis is able to beat his man one-on-one a majority of the time and get to the quarterback. We need that. So, Veach, God damn it, listen to me. Okay? Pay this man. I digress. Offense, the only critique I have is we got to produce in the red zone. I mean, 4 field goals, 2 touchdowns, that's great, but it could easily be 4 touchdowns and 2 field goals, and we win much more comfortably. If we're not producing the way that we should in the red zone against the Bills, that's not going to be a game that we win. Now, look, defense plays the way that they do against Buffalo. Buffalo has a better offense, in my opinion, and more of a fitted offense for these type of elements. It's going to be cold as shit in Buffalo. So, and they're prepared for that. Josh Allen is much better than Tua. So we got to prepare for that. But we got to be able to produce in the red zone. Pat throws it all over the field. That's not an issue. It's when we get to the red zone, we can't be putting up 3. We got to put up 7. No question. again, I'm not saying we got to put up 30 plus points, but at the same time, when we're in the red zone, we got to take advantage. We do, because if we don't, Buffalo, they're credible opponents. Now, I think we're going to be able to beat them. We should have won that game against them in the regular season. And honestly, that's the difference between this game being in Buffalo compared to it being in Kansas City, is Tony lining up offsides. But we're not going to get into that. Again, that's my only critique here. But again, 26 points. I mean, that's the highest amount of points we've had in some time. So I'm happy about that. But Buffalo's defense is better than Miami's. I think if we can put up at least 24 points, we will win that game. I'm confident that our defense is going to be able to show up against Buffalo, a team that we're very familiar with. So I know we're going to have a really good game plan against them. And let's be honest, I think with how things have shaken up, once the Texans won that game, I think we were already starting to prepare for Buffalo because we were confident that Steelers were not going to win that game, so we were most likely going to get Buffalo. So yeah, I think we're getting the guys ready this week. I think getting that first playoff win for the season that we've had, very underwhelming season for our standards. Keep in mind, our standards are winning Super Bowls. I think that was a good boost in morale for the team. So that's something that we needed. And I'm happy overall though with how we looked. I really am. But we just got to be able to produce once we get beyond that 20 and put up 7 and not 3. So that's really my main takeaway from the game. Alrighty, well, that's all I have for you all today. Again, I will be giving my predictions for the divisional round this weekend. So that'll be coming out this Friday, noon Eastern time. So make sure that you tune in for that. But yeah, thank you all again for listening. I know I kind of went on a rant there for a little bit for a lot of those things and gave you my whole rundown of my Brooklyn trip. But it was fun, and I thought I'd share it with you all, so you're welcome. But yeah, anyways, thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.